Rich Ceppos, welcome to the Lightning Lap commentary setup. What do you think?
Well, let's race. Let's talk.
Let's talk about racing. So we're here to talk about your experience at Lightning Lap this year with our long-term Subaru BRZ, which was a little different than most entries. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, this year we did something that we've been doing with other long-term cars. We decided to modify it to make it a better track car. BRZs have a huge weakness in the brakes for track work. We discovered this when I drove a BRZ at Lightning Lap 2 years ago. Basically, you could do one lap and then the brake pedal would go to the floor. And we thought, well, there's thousands of BRZ owners out there who might want to go to the track. Is there a fix that might improve the brakes and allow them to do, say, the normal 20-minute sessions out there without the brakes going away and enjoy the car because it's a really fun track car?
And is there a way to do that for not a whole lot of money, right?
Exactly, not for a ton of money. So we did a few things to the car, almost in steps. We did them all together, and you could do more or less, and there's kind of a bare minimum.
So we did new pads from Carbotech, correct?
Carbotech XP12s.
Dot 4 fluid.
Yes, sir.
And then Bridgestone Potenza race tires.
Yeah, and the tires are the optional thing here because that really doesn't affect the brake performance. But while we were at it, we wanted to try out these new tires and see what effect they had on the lap times and the balance of the car, how it was, to drive around the racetrack, how much fun, or did it change anything or whatever.
It's the might as well. So when you got the wheels off, you might as well stick your tires on, right?
Why not?
That's how it goes when you're in there. So after you warmed up in the BRZ, this modified one, initially, what do you think and how it compares to the one you drove a couple years back?
Well, not having the car in stock form there, or the one from 2 years ago, from what I could remember, it drove amazingly similarly. The balance of the car really didn't change. These cars, at the limit, sort of like to jack the tail out a little bit, and really, the lap time that I turned here was in my first half dozen laps in the car. It kind of came back to me, and you can see I have to twitch the wheel a little bit. The car gets a little bit, wants to get a little bit sideways. That's typical behavior in these cars. But it really drove the same, and the difference really was in two areas. Number one, the brakes lasted about a half a dozen laps, and I thought, well, that's enough. That's almost 20 minutes right there. That proves that the changes that we made to the brake package work well. And then we looked at the lap time, and right off the bat in the first session, it was 3.1 seconds faster. Mm-hmm. It went from 3 minutes and 12.4 seconds to 3:09.3. And really, when I looked at the data later, I saw, there's probably even a couple of seconds more in it. Yeah. I really wasn't pressing the car that hard because this is my very first session on the track, the first car that I drove of the week. And I just went out and wow, right away, I was like, well, that proves the point. And I kind of moved on to do other things, only coming back to it on the last day for a few more laps. But it drove essentially the same. The difference was when I looked at the data, where did that 3.1 seconds come from? Well, I wasn't entering the corners any faster, I think because those were early laps, and that's the last thing you adjust is braking deeper and deeper. But as soon as I got on the gas, I was able to feed more gas into it and drive out of the corner quicker exit speeds, going faster on exit, and carrying that speed all the way down to the next corner and saving the time that way. So from the middle of the corner out, once you start applying the throttle with the stickier tires, that allowed you to put more power down sooner, come out of the corner faster, and that's where the lap time came from. And then the brakes held up. What's interesting here, I think, this is just a very kind of standard lap, nothing really wild going on here. What's interesting about this new combination is that the brakes held up, sure, but actually they were working harder than they would be with the standard tires because these tires have more grip, so you can brake even harder. Mm-hmm. So the brakes are doing more work than they would be if you were just running standard tires. So I mean, to go out right away and be 3 seconds faster means there's definitely a lot of lap time left in the car. And looking at the data, I saw that as well. It just made, the tires made little difference on how easy the car is to drive, because it's a pretty easy car to drive, but also really fun if you manage to keep the tail in line.
It's pretty, I think, remarkable result too, because not only is the car now faster, you've got the durability and the brakes to last, and then you've got more grip, but you haven't altered significantly the personality of the vehicle. It's really easy to put on a set of super sticky tires and fundamentally change the way the vehicle behaves. Now it's no longer fun. You lose some of the magic that makes the car exciting to drive. This seems to, from what it sounds like, retain all the inherent BRZ qualities, but just allow you to be on track longer and go slightly faster as well.
Yeah, these tires, so that everyone knows, these are the Bridgestone Potenza. They're called race tires, but they're not race tires. It's a funny name that they gave them. Their stickiest, most aggressive tire is the RS71s. These tires were meant to be streetable, like Cup 2 tires from Michelin. And when I talked to the Bridgestone tire engineers and told them the car didn't behave differently, they said, yes, that's exactly what we're looking for. We weren't looking for the absolute best lap time. We were looking for keeping the personality of the car on the track unchanged from on the stock tires. And these tires are available for a number of ultra high performance cars as well, like Lamborghinis. So it's kind of cool that you could get them for a car like the BRZ, but you really don't need them to enjoy the car. What you need is the brake package, which I can tell you more about, because doing it, we learned a few things. I certainly learned a few things about what's the best way to approach this. Now, you mentioned we had new Carbotech pads. They're the XP12 race pads. They work at a higher temperature range than stock pads, between 250 and 1850 degrees. And you have to have the higher temperature brake fluid. In fact, I brought a list of parts so that I don't forget. This is Castrol React SRF high temperature .4 brake fluid, $57 worth every penny. And those things together are the key elements. We also changed the rotors. We put a new set of OE rotors on the car. And the Carbotech guys informed us that for any brakes to work, you need to get material transference from the pad onto the rotor. And if you just left the stock rotors on that you've been using with the regular pads, it's going to take you multiple track sessions for that to happen when you put those new pads on. So if you want to go out right away and have really effective brakes that really grab hard right away and not waste half your day trying to get them bedded in, then you want to put new rotors on as well. But just so everyone knows, the pads were $317. The fluid was $57. So you're talking like $365 for the basics. And then we paid another $363 for front and rear rotors from the Subaru dealer. Tires, it's always good to have a second set of tires. There were $1,181 for these particular tires. We didn't include the extra cost of the wheels, but you know they're going to be another $600-800 there. So you can spend as little as $365 and probably $2,500 depending upon what you want to do. But the key thing is getting the brakes to work well. And of course, Subaru and Toyota recognize this. They have a new performance package for the cars in 2024 that use Brembo brakes. So they address this, and we haven't had those on the track yet. Maybe next year's Lightning Lap, we'll see how well they work. But clearly, they understood it was a problem for people who want to track these cars. So it all worked out really well. We got what we wanted out of it. We threw on a set of fresh tires. These tires that we use, these race tires, we drove on the street for 2,500 miles, put on a set of fresh tires, car didn't go any faster. Again, shows that there's no degradation in the tires from keeping them on the car. The thing people might want to do is, once you change the brake pads and rotors, keep them on the whole summer.
Yeah.
And because if you go back to the stock brake pads, you have that problem. They're not going to be effective. You want to take them off for cold weather, because the Carbotech engineers said in a frigid Minnesota morning, you go to hit the brakes, you're just going to go sailing on. The brakes are cold, and you got to have heat in those brakes. And you don't want to
Don't want to find that out. Yeah.
Find yourself in the middle of an intersection because you couldn't stop. So all those things need to be taken into consideration. But man, it worked great right out of the box, no problem.
It's nice to think that was that successful of a package. And it'll be really interesting next year if we get the BRZ TS out to see how it compares both from a lap time perspective and a durability perspective. What else are you looking forward to driving next year?
Well, next year we'll see. I don't know. Whatever looks like fun and whatever KC Cole will let me drive.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
All right. Pleasure.